couple of pounds of hair that I had in it.
How are you?
She was saying her son was doing recent.
Mr. Cordova, I came here just to meet you.
They're Christmas. So it's at the side of our house.
Okay, if everybody can take a seat, we'll get this program started. Okay. Good evening. Good evening. And welcome to a very historic night. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Let me start off by recognizing some elected and appointed officials. Dr. E. Edwin Brown, the Assistant Superintendent of Instructions. Mr. Greg McGovern. Everyone is excited. I'm gonna call the list out and just hold your applause until the end. Thank you. Mr. Greg McGovern, the Principal of Lansdowne Middle School. Dr. Pusley, Deputy Superintendent. Bob Clyburn, City Councilman. Van Spiva, newly elected School Board. Tim Jackson, newly elected School Board. Admiral Felt, appointed School Board. William Sessoms, just newly re-elected. And Dr. Charles Vincent, also elected School Board member. Thanks for coming out and supporting the efforts of the Filipino American community here in Hampton Roads. My name is Ferdinand Tolentino. I'm a second-generation Filipino American, born and raised here in Hampton Roads. Thank you. I didn't realize I was so inspirational so quickly. My parents, Fidelio and Rebecca Tolentino, were part of the fourth wave of Filipinos to come to the United States in the mid-1960s. Being the first Filipino American and the youngest member on the Virginia Beach School Board, I feel very honored to be a part of this premiere. As a product of the Virginia Beach school system, where I started at Plaza Elementary School, then finished up at First Colonial High School in 1987, I never thought I'd be in this position. It is a great responsibility to be a member of our local school board, and with it comes an enormous responsibility to be accountable to the community we live in. I'm an extension of the Filipino American community and a product of our school system. I'll make every attempt to make the city of Virginia Beach a better place to live. Considering this is my first project, I feel very fortunate to have worked with so many good people in our school system, as well as the members of the Hampton Roads chapter of the Filipino American National Historical Society, better known as FANHS. This program was possible only because of the efforts of FANHS and the Virginia Beach Public Schools. This film that all of us will preview tonight is the first of its kind, the first professional production of comprehensive history of the Filipino American experience here in the United States of America ever made. For years, there was nothing, no published books or materials. I found nothing in our libraries, our bookstores, and our schools. Nothing on Filipino American history. However, this problem is being addressed by the efforts of the members of FANHS and its 16 chapters nationwide. Now, it is with great pleasure to introduce to you the founder and president of Hampton Roads chapter of FANHS, Dr. Allan L. Bergano.
Thank you, Ferdie. Good evening. Is the history of Europeans in America only for white Americans? Is the history of Africans in America only for black Americans? Is the history of Filipinos in America only for Filipino Americans? The answer to these questions is obviously no. The histories of all American ethnic groups should be celebrated and embraced because, after all, we are all accepted as Americans. Or are we? History is to a people as memory is to an individual. Imagine if you lost your memory. You would not know your name. You would not know who or what your mother is or father. You would not know who or what you love or hate. Since you have no concept of the past, you would not know where you're going in the future or what to do in the present. You are lost. No sense of direction, no sense of purpose, no sense of how to live. I am sure everyone in this room would agree, losing one's memory would be a tragic and traumatic experience. What if a people lost its history? Or more specifically, what if a people had no history? In 1970, this was the situation of Filipino Americans. Filipino Americans were lost. Written documentation of the Filipino American experience was practically non-existent. We are not mentioned in American history books or American history classes. We did not know what to be proud of. What's even more tragic, many of us didn't even care, even to the point of denying the existence of any Philippine ancestry. In 1971, a small group of community activists in Seattle, Washington said, "Enough is enough. We need to make a stand. We have no one to blame but ourselves for our people's demise. We must hold ourselves responsible. We must become accountable." If we do not value ourselves as Filipino Americans, how can we expect the other American ethnic groups to value us? If we do not take the time and effort to write Filipino American history, how can we expect anybody else to write our history? Before we can begin to take pride in being Filipino American, we have to know first Filipino American history. Before we can be incorporated into American history books and American history classes, we have to know first Filipino American history. The three most indispensable factors to remind or reinforce in the minds of all Americans that we are Americans too is history, history, history. So who is going to write our history? Who among us is going to become accountable to take on such a gigantic task? And what will be the price? In 1971, Dorothy Cordova took charge. Through the 1970s, hundreds and hundreds of Filipino Americans were interviewed through her oral history project. In addition to the oral history tapes, thousands of pictures, newspapers, research papers, and books were also donated and collected. By the end of the 1970s, Auntie Dorothy's collection became the most extensive, comprehensive resource on Filipino Americans in the entire world. In 1982, inspired by Auntie Dorothy's collection, the Filipino American National Historical Society, or FANHS, was created. With all this stuff collected, who is going to make sense out of it? Who among us is going to take responsibility and accountability to define, write, and articulate our history? And again, what will be the price? Being the most articulate Filipino American, we all look to Fred Cordova. In 1983, Uncle Fred took the challenge and wrote the first Filipino American history book ever written, entitled Filipinos, Forgotten Asian Americans. For the first time, Filipino Americans were defined by history, a history based and documented by years of community-based research. Today, FANHS has 16 chapters throughout the United States and remains as the world's foremost organization dedicated to articulating the Filipino American experience. What was the price Uncle Fred and Auntie Dorothy asked for? After years and years of dedication, sacrifice, commitment, and hard work, they only ask for an opportunity. The opportunity for you to see and listen to our story. On behalf of Uncle Fred, Auntie Dorothy, and members of the Hampton Roads chapter of FANHS, I would like to thank the administration of the Virginia Beach Public School System, specifically Dr. Brown, and school board member, Mr. Ferdinand Tolentino, for believing in our organization and its mission. I would like to personally thank each and every one of you tonight for spending your precious time in joining us in celebrating the first video ever produced in promoting the Filipino American experience. After tonight, I hope you can begin to understand the meaning of the phrase, I am you, you are us, we are Americans. At this time, I would like to introduce to you the heart and soul of the Filipino American National Historical Society. Let's give a Virginia Beach, Virginia welcome to Auntie Dorothy Cordova.
Can you hear me? I have a real soft voice. I'm overwhelmed. When I saw the crowd coming in, I thought, oh my God, we better be good. My job today, in a brief 4 minutes, is to kind of give you an overview of how this production came about. Around between 2.5 and 3 years ago, my husband thought of an idea of doing small blurbs on TV, like 30 seconds, on Filipino American history, to be shown during Filipino American History Month, which is in October. He got together a committee of people, and eventually the concept expanded from 30 seconds to 30 minutes, and then, well, heck, if we're going to do it, let's try for an hour. There was a production crew in Seattle who bought into this concept, and over the next 2.5 years, we worked together to try and bring this about. The first thing was to find money, because we found out to our amazement how much money a project like this would cost, and the price ranged anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000. We wrote proposals to a number of places, people who had funded us before, and we were rejected by most groups. One reason for this is we had a track record in doing research, but we never had a track record of doing our own video production. But we did get a small grant for the California Endowment or California Commission for the Humanities for $10,000 to do preliminary studies and to get a script draft written. And the person that was hired on was a person called Kathleen Phelan, who was an award-winning scriptwriter who produced something called Rings of Fire, which won an award on PBS. And we started to gather input from different people based on her draft on what they thought about it. AT&T contacted us through a Filipino, and once again it was through the Filipino connection. And this man who was an executive with the AT&T was interested. He said that they would give us $50,000 towards the production. For almost a year after getting rejected, the $50,000 plus the $10,000 from California was the only money we had. And we were all losing heart, and we were thinking, well, we can't do it. Finally, AT&T came to us and they said, okay, we'll give you another $10,000. They came to my office in Seattle and we said, could you raise it up to $80,000? And they said, $80,000, not a penny more. Now, when you consider we had to go from $150,000 to $200,000 all the way down to $80,000, that meant that we had to do a lot of cutting. But those of you who are Filipinos understand that Filipinos can stretch a dollar. You can make it stretch. And that's precisely what we did. The first thing we had to do, naturally, is we had to let go the scriptwriter, who was going to cost us a lot of money. We also had to relinquish our idea of doing dramatizations on the film. So we depended then on talking heads, and that's what you'll see. The problem was which talking heads would we select without hurting anybody's feelings? What we did finally, or I should say I'll assume the responsibility, what I did finally was I had to choose 5 people who were the best scholars on 5 aspects of Filipino American history research, historical research. One was Helen Nagtalan Miller from Hawaii, Don Gimari, who did Alaska, Marina Espina, who was the prime mover in the concept or the history of Filipino Manila men, the first ones to settle in the United States. A person called Alex Fabros, who was a man set on fire because he is a very intensive researcher and he did World War II. My husband did the overview. He served as a narrator, but the narration is not written. What you're going to see on the screen are people responding to a set of questions that I gave to each one, and the narrator is off screen. What happened after we were done is you will see 54 minutes, which was gleaned from 16 hours of taping. The photographs that we selected, we went all over the country to get photographs. We finally settled on 350 from approximately 3,000 that I looked at, and out of that we chose 150. So what we had, by the time we were done, it was a matter of editing all the way down. The other thing that AT&T said to us, besides just giving us $80,000, is we had to finish everything by December 31st. Well, we did. We spent the $80,000 on a show on a video that should have cost $150,000 to $200,000, and we finished it December 31st, 1993. We did everything on time. One note, in the very beginning there will be an AT&T commercial, and I want you to well, hey, they gave us the money, but one note of information that you should have is the minute or two for the commercial costs $200,000. The rest, the other 55 minutes, only cost us $80,000.
I would, hello. Can everybody hear me? Okay. I would like to recognize some more elected officials that walked in a little bit late. Delegate Bob McDonald and also re-elected Councilwoman Nancy Parker is around here somewhere. Now, I'd like to introduce to you Fred Cordova.
I take audio. Can you hear me? I take off this hat to show you how ugly I really am. Nakalbo na ako eh. If you liked this video documentary, there is good news to share with you. 3 days ago, we heard from the Houston International Film Festival that sponsors World Fest, one of the largest film and video festivals in the United States, which drew this year 4,800 entries from 43 countries, and you just saw the bronze medalist. To the students, to the first generation students, the second and the third, and to the teachers that teach them, this is only one more way to let you know that being Pinoy is beautiful and that you yourselves can win. This, I think, is one of the significances of this video documentary. For the first time, we now have at least one of broadcast quality, which we're beginning to negotiate with PBS to show, as well as to hit the home video markets. And do please see Edwina and Allan. He's the one with the suit and a tie on tonight. To take orders for those of you that would like to bring it home, the going price is $29.95, and to be able to show that again, those others who should see this film, because this is certainly our story, regardless of whether natao tayo sa Pilipinas or whether we were born here. It doesn't matter, because while we are in Virginia Beach, while we pay the taxes of the state of Virginia, while we obey the laws of this land and put our destiny and our life to the United States of America, we are truly Filipino Americans, and this we should be very, very proud of. The significance as well of this video documentary is now to encourage not only those of you who would like to become doctors and nurses and engineers and accountants, but we call on musicians, poets, artists, journalists, scriptwriters, as well as plumbers and carpenters. For work in this country with hands is an honorable thing. To begin to continue the work of research. We only cut it off through 1965. Most of you, I would say, began, therefore, your American experience, and those of you that came from the Philippines, the ancestral land that both Dorothy and I have yet to see, that most of you came during the fourth immigration wave of 1965 on. And so there's much more to tell. And again, students, and particularly those of you now going to college, to the great universities of this state, your history is washing your dishes, is picking up after you, and is still supporting you. These are your parents. Take a pencil and a pen, a piece of paper, tape recorder, and begin to do the family history. Because you can go through Asian American studies, multicultural education, and know about all of the things even that we have here. But if you don't know your family, you are still poor. And the history, therefore, of the fourth immigration wave is right in this very room. Kids, get them while they're hot, while their memory is still there, while your parents can remember not only the grandparents, but the great-grandparents and the great-great-grandparents, and what it was like in the provinces. But why did they leave the Philippines? What did it mean for the first day in America? What was it like to taste the first hot dog? What was it like to taste pizza for the first time? What was it like to be interviewed for a job and not necessarily get it? And the hardship that your parents' generation went through, because the struggle continues. And although we may be comfortable very, very much in what we're doing and striving to become middle-class Americans, I want to say to you as well, racism still lives in this country, and it continues to strive. And because we are not the average garden variety type of American, we must know who and what we are in order to be strong and in order to be that better American that we would want to be. I'd like to particularly credit the production company, J.F. Wayman and Associates of Seattle, as well as National Video Profiles in Seattle, and one other person who deserves very, very much, and that is Jackie Jamero, and get this for the last name, Bergano, who is Allan's cousin-in-law. You see, the theory of relativity is we are related to one another. Dorothy did not mention this, but we had a hard time in selling this video to the National Association of Asian Americans, NATA, and to others, because we as a people are still not marketable. America still does not know that we exist, or they continue to pass us by. A sister had asked me outside in the hall, why did you name or title your book, The Forgotten Asian Americans? Well, if we are not forgotten, then go to your library and pick up your Filipino American literature. Begin now to discuss with your teachers the curriculum development of what is taught in your social sciences. If there is nothing there, then certainly there is still a very, very covert way of still ignoring us. And so even though we are in an exhilarating type of mood tonight, in a very, very celebratory mood, in that we have been able to share together such an achievement such as this, it has come very, very much at a high price. I ask, therefore, that the young people, when you get and finish your schooling, whatever it may be, do not forget not only your family, but do not forget your community. Come back. Do not allow what you perceive of the confusion that may be in our communities today to turn you off, as it had turned off my generation. Our community needs bright minds, but not only bright minds, the commitment and the continuance of uplifting us as Filipino Americans. And we do it not because we just want to preserve that which is Pinoy, but if we love this country, and if we are truly Americans, it is to uplift this country, which I believe is still the best nation in the world. And so I look upon you as the future Allan Berganos, the future Edwina Bergano, the future Ferdie Tolentinos, all to take eventually their place, because just blink an eyelash and before you know it, Allan is going to have to wear a hat like me. Marami pong salamat sa inyo lahat. And as they really do say in true Filipino, Dios te agnina.
I just wanted to recognize another elected official. We have Delegate Frank Wagner here also. Well, this will conclude our program, but first, before everybody leaves, Dr. Fawcett could not make it tonight, and he wanted for me to present the Cordovas a good gesture here. Hold on. We have a book here of Princess Anne County and Virginia Beach, a patrol history. Oops. From Dr. Fawcett to you.
Your superintendent, Dr. Fawcett, is behind us. Your mayor is behind us. I'd like to say one other thing, and you have a treasure here in Virginia Beach. There's a parallel course. One is Philippine history, Philippine studies, which needs to continue to be developed. The other is the Filipino American history, to which we in the Historical Society is committed to. Two go hand in hand like rice and adobo. I want to point out one treasure that you have that no other city in the United States has. I was privileged this morning to be brought by Jeffrey Acosta to the MacArthur Memorial. We have artifacts in the Smithsonian. We have things at the University of Michigan and various other museums. But at the MacArthur Memorial, even though it is not totally perfect and what have I appreciated about the MacArthur Memorial in its pursuit of Philippine history is the sensitivity, the attempt to try and tell the truth, no matter whether our country has had the warts in its face as imperialists, as colonizers, or so on. The sensitivity that has been directed towards our people, mga kapatid natin in the Philippines, is there. If you have not seen it, see it. If you have not supported it, support it. And more so, please support the Historical Society here in Virginia Beach, because now the work is yours and you now have to begin as of tonight. Salamat.
Well, this concludes our program tonight. Thanks a lot for coming out, and drive carefully in the rain.
I'm just going to ask you the question, and you just need to answer in a minute, just if you don't feel comfortable, we'll start again.
Okay.
Are you ready? Yeah. Okay, Councilwoman, tell us what you felt was the importance of the film tonight and what it will mean to the community.
Can we talk into it? Does that help?
I'm sorry, you're going to talk to me.
Okay, testing 1, 2. Are you picking up?
Yeah.
Testing 1, 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, try it again.
Okay.
Okay, tell us the importance of this film that you saw tonight, and what do you think the impact will have on our community? Hey, buddy, congratulations.
How you doing?
Good. Okay, be careful.
You need some photos, man. Just
Okay.
And then just pieces.
Go ahead and start, yeah.
Okay.
Look at me, though.
This film, the way it was presented and showed the Philippine culture and the history, was a very uplifting one. I came away having a lot of positive, warm feelings about a culture that I probably knew very little about when one looks back over what's been contributed to the United States. And the nice thing about it that I saw and I heard was the undergirding theme that the family is one of the cultural central figures for the entire Filipino community. And that you don't just have a mother and a father, but you might have hundreds of uncles or hundreds of aunts, and if there's trouble or a time of concern, all these people will reach out and they'll form this close-knit circle around you to make sure that you're going to survive and that your family is going to be a success. Because it's very obvious they want every single person, every single child to succeed and to become the very best they possibly can be.
Okay. Okay. Okay, look at me. And you know, take about 45 seconds, a minute for the answer. You know, be comfortable.
Okay.
What do you think the importance of the film was? What impact did the film have on you?
The film was important to me because of my role as an educator. I think it is critical for us to know about our students and their backgrounds so that we can more appropriately help them learn about themselves and their past, their culture, their background, self-appreciation.
Okay. Madonna, tell me why the film was important to you, and look at me when you answer. Why do you think the film was important?
I believe that this film on Filipino American history is important because, especially for the youth in this area, we have no idea. We have been desensitized, to borrow a phrase from Dr. Bergano, and we need to know that there is a history here, that we have been here for more than 100 years or 200 years. It's important that we know that we have a heritage here in this country and that we have to take responsibility now for writing the history on this coast. The video has primarily focused on the West Coast, Alaska, Hawaii, and Louisiana. We have yet to hear anything about New York and Virginia and even Chicago, and we need to bring that up and let the students know, as well as the adults, that there are Filipinos here on the East Coast.
Great.
I'll ask you the same question.
Okay.
Just look at me and just tell me.
Okay.
You know, what impact it had on you and why you think it's an important film.
Well, I thought it was very informative. I thought it had a lot of treasures to which I think my children should be known to open, especially if it's about their father and my father, their grandfather. And when they had a picture of people moving from the Philippines to the United States through boat, it reminded me of my father all over again and how he traveled. But most importantly, I thought of the courage that these people went through and the heartache that they went through in leaving their own families. So I thought it was important in that nature, but also that they had more of a courage, more of a sustenance, and it's God that helped them throughout all this courage. And I hope that my children can gain more information, gain more treasures, gain more secrets into this historical society. And I hope it would gain more impact as we see it more now through United States.
Okay, great.
Just what it meant to you and what it means to the community.
All right. This film has a lot of meaning to me. I married a Filipina. My children are of Filipino ancestry. There are a lot of books in the libraries where my children can learn about their European ancestors, but there are no books in the library, or very few, in which they can learn anything about their Filipino ancestors. In addition, working at the MacArthur Memorial, I have studied firsthand the sacrifices made by Americans and Filipinos in the service of the United States of America. In 1942, during the worst hours of World War II, an army of Americans and Filipinos held off the Japanese, and on a place called Bataan, they endured the cruelty of the death march, and they inspired Americans to fight for the ultimate victory against the Japanese. And these people deserve to be recognized. And the experience is unique, and we must remember also that from 1898 till 1946, the Philippines was a territory of the United States. It was our colony, our Commonwealth, and that's why so many of them come here. And this is a very unique heritage, and that is why I feel films like this are important, because they say what happened on the West Coast, and we're going to learn what happened on the East Coast.
Great, great, right.